very brief, so I expect us to have some discussions after my presentation. So, enabling a national economic diversification policy and depending less on a single revenue source. Looking at Saudi Arabia and UAE as a case study in this ongoing discussion, some will say attack on oil and gas, some will say trying to make the earth better, and some will also say increasing poverty. So my concern here is not too much of the politics. My concern here is intellectual property law. My concern is how IP from studies and from reality has actually enabled. IP is one of the incidences, subjects that we've seen from my personal studies and from scholarship out there that has made life interesting and a little bit easy in terms of economic development of nation states, entrepreneurs, and individuals. So, we have seen the recent events happening in the Middle East, the Gulf states. We've seen what Saudi Arabia is doing with the smart city. We've also seen, prior to Saudi Arabia, drive to diversify the economy, which is now a national policy, because as we are aware, the price of oil and gas all over the world is going down. So most countries like Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, and the rest of the countries that depends or depended entirely on the extractive industry have to be smart about it, have to look forward, because we are told 50, 100 years from now, there might not be oil in the ground, which some engineers, geologists disagree with that. In any case, the reality is that we have to change. Humanity has to change and confront realities we have on global planet. So Saudi Arabia has their own policy 2030. UAE has their own policies of diversifying, using the resources of oil to venture into other areas of the economy, especially like tourism, agriculture, and the rest. So Saudi Arabia came in late into the game. They've acceded to, as early as early this year, they acceded to one treaty that deals with intellectual property, which had to do with the Olympic rings. But in my opinion, there's a lot to do, because the fundamental treaties regime that will impact their effectiveness, like the WIPO copyright treaties that was an answer or reaction to the digital economy, making copyright, patent, trademarks respond to technological productions. They've not acceded to those ones yet. They've not acceded to the Beijing Audiovisual Performance Rights Treaty. But good enough, UAE is ahead of the game. They have acceded to most of these major treaties, Ben's Convention and the rest, and TRIPS. Yeah, Saudi Arabia has done TRIPS too. But why do we really have to put more force on IP regimes? We know as scholars and as lawyers, businessmen, that we know that from 1996, when WCT came into being, although there were parable of horribles by scholars, legal scholars, lawyers, that is going to destroy creativity. Contrary, we've seen that that law has impacted positively on nation states and individuals. I would say boldly, that as a result of the change in jurisprudence, legal regimes in IP, through WCT and states that have changed their laws to reflect, like America did theirs, digital copyright management, digital management copyright act, and some other countries have changed their laws to reflect that treaty. We have iTunes. Before now, it was difficult for you to get music, but you can download music for cheap now. Although somebody says that's relative, because in some countries of the South Hemisphere, $1 is still difficult to get. But in any case, we have Netflix, we have WhatsApp, we have Google, Google, we have Microsoft, we have Facebook, very popular, we have Instagram, where the young folks we have Snapchat, like my daughter would say, Daddy, that's not for you, go to Facebook. Snapchat is for we, you are too old. I don't know. But in any case, that tells you how decentralized and liberalized these technologies have been. There are social benefits, there are political benefits, and there are economic benefits, because YouTube has actually made people rich in the developing economies. There are a series of cases now where kids from poor backgrounds have been creative on YouTube and actually maximize their creativity because they're getting paid for every click of you watching their content. So that's in a nutshell why, if you upscale that nationally and do it properly, first, having a good structured legal system that will protect those creativities, those innovations, and of course, IP now, we have a lot of subsectors of IP. We mentioned a few here. We have the big ones, the traditional ones, patent, copyright, trademarks, trade secret, designs. Now we have things like geographical indications, which if nation states, especially, I am aware, I've been here for like about 4 months now in the Gulf. I've seen the richness of the agricultural products. It's in the dates. I've seen the beautiful attires, traditional attires here. I bought some now. Very soon I'm going to be an Arab very soon in my dressing, because they are beautiful. And prior to now, most of the developed countries' entrepreneurs, they came to the Southern Hemisphere and misappropriated our cultures. I'm still on the zone of geographical indication. We have the case of the Maasai people in Ethiopia, in Kenya, Uganda, where Louis Vuitton, for years, were using their traditional trademark attire, until lawyers, IP lawyers, call them, you can't be doing this. You are using these people's cultural and this question of public domain. When it comes to the developing countries, we are always having the exceptions. We're talking of public domain. We are talking of there is no law to protect it. Yeah, there is law. There are laws to protect it. It's just that you don't want to protect it because it favors you. You extended the tenure for copyright because of Disney influenced you to do that to 70 years, Sonny Bono. Now, AI is going to be granted patent and legal rights within a short period of time. And we've been talking about granting traditional culture, folklores, legal rights for the past 30 years in WIPO, in UN. We still don't agree So nation states should now wake up, just like Saudi Arabia is doing, just like UAE is doing. And in fact, something blew my mind because I've been doing this research for the past 3 years now. I published 1 or 2 papers from it. I discovered that Saudi Arabia, actually, in the real terms of reality, is the only country in the developing world right now that has consciously and proactively talked the talk and walked the walk when it comes to diversifying their economic resources, revenue. Because what is happening there in the Northwest, the Neom city, is a manifestation of the force, the political force that is needed in nation states to use IP and change the trajectory of their revenue base. UAI, yes, I could be a little bit biased because I live in Saudi Arabia now, but UAE on the other side, legally, structurally, has been ahead of most of the countries because they've gone all out to accede to most of the fundamental treaties. They focused on tourism, but how well is the legal regimes to protect the tourism industry in terms of IP? How would foreign investors feel comfortable coming with their trademark-based creations, innovative widgets, and traditional creativity to showcase in a trade fair? Now we have a beautiful thing going on now, Expo 2020. How are the laws here that will protect people displaying their wares even in public without the fear that some smart creators are coming to steal their products, designs, their business plans, and the rest? So this is why we should up our regimes and enforcement, the promotion of these IPs. So I'm going to wrap up right now. So in my studies, I traveled to Africa, and I talked to a lot of scholars and IP scholars, and Ethiopia, Nigeria, and I discovered that actually we need to do something about the future. And the future, in terms of the expertise in this area of the law, IP, is a little bit poor. The lawyers that we have now, we don't have much experts. Yeah, we have, but they are not enough to, like I would say, be the disciples of IP. So the law schools in this region should look into their curriculum on how to de-emphasize doctrinal teaching, theoretical-based teaching, combine doctrinal with experiential. I made a suggestion in recently, I think it's been published. I don't know what I have it in this slide because it just came out. Yeah, I think I have it there. So it's just been published, what, a week ago. So if you have time, read it. I don't think it's open source, but because we are scholars here, if you want it, I can give you for personal use. I can give you a copy for personal use. Shoot me an email. I think you have my email. We'll publish it after the slide. So anybody who wants to read it can send a copy to you. So in essence, IP is going to be more relevant in the next few years. Are we ready? Is the Gulf Arab states ready? Is Africa ready? And I say we should be ready. We are not yet ready. Thank you. Questions? have questions?
Any questions?
No questions?
I have a question, not directly related to your presentation, but obviously I think if you've had any thoughts on it. There was an interesting discussion here yesterday on NFTs and that concept. There seems to be a lack of understanding of exactly what an NFT is, and if you're purchasing one, what are you acquiring? It doesn't include copyright, it doesn't include the right to exclude. And I think, as intellectual property people, we're more comfortable with copyright, patents, ownership of rights. NFTs doesn't seem to include that. What are your thoughts on that? Have you have any insights that
Yeah.
enlighten us?
Yeah, you read that paper, I touch on that. Yeah. Non-fungible tangibles, like everything in the world is new. Scholars, practitioners, lawyers, and we are still struggling with what really is this beast. We don't have cases yet, but I've read a lot about it. Smart scholars have written a lot about it. Is it Gomelex? Is one of the top scholars out there who's written a lot, very insightful article on it. So this is how I see NFTs actually is strictly in the terrain of copyright and trademarks. Last week, Hems, is that how they pronounce that clothing company? Hemis? Yeah. I sued some, guy who did an NFT of their work and all that, trying to dilute their trademark and all that. I know they're going to lose. The NFT guy is going to lose. So it comes back to the engine room, the universities. We have to be aggressive. Technology is ahead of us. Very soon now we're going to be ruled by robots. So we should be aggressive in doing research and really finding out the parameters. I would say, just like copyright has given the derivatives rights, the secondary rights, people can, through the fair use doctrine, you can, take from the original and produce. Yes, NFTs I could categorize them as the secondary part, derivatives from original. But the problem is, we all know it's all about money. We might spin it whatever they want to spin it. Yeah, IP has utilitarian purposes, but the world we live in now is all about big bucks. So any NFT out there should be very careful. Because as soon as you create anything, whether you call it NFT, put it in the blockchain, you are in the zone of infringement. That's me. So if somebody comes to me as a client, I'll tell you, first of all, go and negotiate for a license. Don't just be sneaky because it's technology. You can do digital stuff and put it out there. I'm going to sue you. If a client comes to me, I'm going to sue you. And I'm happy owners of copyright are now aggressive in suing them. Maybe the courts will tell us, will guide us. But NFTs are controlled by IP. So if you are doing NFT, it's not Father Christmas, go and talk to the owners of the original work. Because you are infringing. You can spin it whatever you want to spin it. Did I try?
It's so many issues related to NFTs and valuation of NFTs.
Yeah.
Any information is good.
Valuation is another problem the experts have to do. Do you know that? I don't know. I'm doing a lot of research on that because I'm trying to help the movie industry in Nigeria. I have not really seen law schools have a subject on that, which is very important. Like, even banks don't regard your IP as a valuable property that they could give you a loan based on Your IP. So we need the expert, we need the statisticians, we need the economists to come together with the lawyers, IP lawyers, so that we guide this market. That look, my name, my work. Could you imagine Andy Warhol or those great creators we know of? If when they started, somebody actually said, okay, it's what, based on what we've done, it's worth $10 billion. Even projecting, like they project, before you get a loan for a business, you do a business plan, somebody sits down, smart guys with figures, say, this business is going to bring, it's not absolute, but at least they have figures. This business, in 2 years, we're saying that it's going to bring in $20 billion. And the banks jump for it. Whether it fails down the road is another story. But like all things IP, we really have to be aggressive in putting these things out there and convincing, especially the financial market or sector, what IPs are worth. NFTs are worth a lot. This issue I just told you, this case now, I think the guy made some like $50,000 or $5,000. Huh?
He made 2.5 million.
Yeah. You see? And that's a secondary. Just like the video industry. I mean, my friend Professor Lemley, published something the other day, and I saw it. I went and checked it out. The video game industry is actually bigger than the movie industry right now. So video game industry is a derivative of the movie industry. But that secondary industry is now overwhelming. So I would say, I don't know, I read it somewhere. I would say NFT is a dangerous game. And NFT is really dangerous. If we don't check it now, you wake up one morning and somebody will craft your image because he knows you are a celebrity and says NFT, and he will make money more than you, and you'll be trekking on the street, and he's going there and sitting down in the bank and will tell you, fair use, fair dealing. So I am really working on that. I mean, I'm concerned too, because it affects my original people. It affects our creators in Africa, because their arts, their works are all over the internet, and they don't have this. Yep.
So I have a question as well about, so the theme of the presentation was about the economic diversification and how it intersects with intellectual property and Saudi Arabia and Gulf. It's really interesting because I think a lot of us are lawyers here, and obviously when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So obviously lawyers, I think, have a tendency to say the solution to economic diversification is to have a stronger IP regime. And I actually agree with this. But I guess I just want to put it out to you that would you agree that there's another component to this, which is you need to have an industrial policy in general that is intended at the creation of IP, indigenous IP. And I think in the Gulf, that is one of the challenges that we have. And I assume Saudi Arabia is similar as the UAE, but here definitely the challenges that we have is that a lot of the local Emirati companies who actually do create IP, they tend to first get IP protection, and when I say IP, I mean mostly patent protection in the US. And sometimes they actually get it here, but usually it's not really necessary because if you have IP protection in the US, it kind of, it's going to show up in any prior art search everywhere. So I guess my question to you is this, in terms of Saudi Arabia, to what extent do you see that, about the industrial policy side of things, to support, the general creation of IP in Saudi Arabia? Because to me, you cannot have one without the other. Just creating a strong IP system is sort of meaningless if there's no IP being created locally. So I'd like to have your
Thank you so much. Thank you so. I mean, I totally agree with you. I couldn't say it better than you just said it. Yes, like I said, IP is just one part of the puzzle. One part. We have so many of them. I'll just give an example to back up what you're saying. Okay, all right. Because I know about this. Nigeria, we've heard of Nollywood. Nollywood is now, okay, I will be a little bit biased. Nollywood is now the second most biggest. I know the Indians will say no, but Nollywood is about the biggest now, after Hollywood. And Nollywood is not a big buck, it's not a big money industry in terms of production. You need less than $15,000 to produce a hit that goes into Netflix. Meanwhile, the US, you need like $20 million to produce a movie. But you see, to even get to a cinema hall is a problem. There are no roads. Security, I'm not like trying to paint anybody, but that's the reality. I was born in Nigeria, so I can say this. If you come knock at me, my parents are from Nigeria. So. The power system is terrible. Electricity. So the small business guy who's trying to create has to generate his own power, has to build his own road, has to mine his own water from the ground. It sounds straight, but that's what happens in real life over there. So what does that do? It adds layers to the cost of production. Now, you go to the ports, you import this equipment which you don't produce at home. So this applies to other countries too. So I'm just using where I know very well, Although they keep telling you, the government, politicians keep telling you, oh, we are doing this. They give you $1 trillion budget and this is voted for roads and all that. Well, we know what goes on down there. Now, without these infrastructures, tax policy, and other incentives, how could you imagine that a small business guy imports recording video production equipment and the thing is staying there in the ports? Why? Because some guy somewhere is pushing the paper. When he's pushing the paper, he wants you to grease his arm to push the paper. And on the other flip side, the government is not doing anything about it because you know how the system rolls. Everybody gets a cut from the mess. Then, like Saudi Arabia, like I said, there's a deliberate effort. The city is structured with this in mind. I'm not a government official, so I'm just a scholar, so I'm not promoting anybody. So without this structural improvement and incidences, infrastructure, not just law alone. Yeah, like you said, law, we need the law. Law for me is the primary thing first. See? We got to get a good law. We got to get, because that, we know the norms directs and controls and helps people at least clarity on where they want to do or what they want to have. But it's also really important, it should be 50-50. The infrastructure should be there. People should be able to be incentivized to bring stuff, creation into a country without being harassed. You pay, I should even know how much I'm going to pay. You shouldn't leave that between me and the custom guy there in a small office. And again, the custom guy you put in that office, you put him in a ramshackle, no AC, no nothing. The guy has not been paid for 3-4 months. He can't feed his family. And you think you can cure corruption with that kind of system? How do you tell a guy to collect billions of dollars for you? And the guy is hungry. Damn it. If I'm hungry, I'll take some. That's the reality of life. So governments also have their part to play. I've headed to the discussion. Please, further questions. I made it short so that we can really talk, because my understanding of conferences is part of what we are doing now brings very great papers out there. It's not the presentation. Yeah, it's good to have a good presentation, but this we are doing now, like he's done now, maybe I'll get your name, I'll add 1 or 2 chapters in my paper, and boom, that's it. Anyway, if there's no question, then I'll take a bow and thank you for coming. It's been my first time in Dubai, and I'm having fun. Thanks.